Hello, I'm happy to be here with you today. I'm really excited about this episode. I really love the idea of devoting a whole episode to talking about very active babies and their sleep and give you some tips you can walk away with today, some things to start working on right now. And also at the end, I'll talk to you about some ways you can learn more from me on this topic. So please stay tuned for that. So today we're here talking about very active babies and toddlers, aka started children. And I want to remind you that I'm always going to give you insight, tips, and advice that will support your child's well-being, be positive and good for you and good for your child, and help you grow in confidence and give you peace of mind. All right. So you're in the right place if those are really important values to you and your family. Very active babies. That's a topic that is actually pretty popular whenever I post about it. I post a reel or talk about it in my story. I get a lot of interest. So I know this is an important topic that people are almost hungry for. They're almost like, nobody's talking about this. Is this a thing? Is there help for me? And just a side note, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping parents of spirited or very active children is that, most sleep methods out there are geared towards easygoing kids or pretty textbook-like kids that are, predictable and typical. And then there's this host of babies and toddlers and children out there that are different. These methods and approaches aren't necessarily helping parents get anywhere, or they're working so hard at it. They're trying everything. They're spending all their money and exhausting themselves to pieces, trying to do things that don't even work or fit. So this is important stuff. And I hope today that I can give you relief and hope. One thing I've got to say is that I meet moms who have active babies all the time. So I don't think it's that uncommon, but I do know from talking to many of you that in your circle of friends and family, and even maybe in your community, you're not running into a lot of people whose kids are like yours, because doctors are getting a little freaked out or shocked or amazed at your child's strength, at their energy, at how busy they are. And, if it's a pediatrician who works with lots of families, you would expect them to see that. But for some reason, they're not. So just take it from me. There's lots of parents and kids like yours out there. In fact, often kids will have a relative, maybe it's a parent, an aunt or uncle, a grandparent, somebody in the family that's very active. And so a lot of times this is just like normal to these families. They're not really even surprised by it. They don't always enjoy it and it's challenging, but they're like, oh, my husband's the same way. But there's other times, and I'm thinking of one of my favorite parenting coaches, Amy Webb, who teaches a lot about temperament. Her website's The Thoughtful Parent. Sorry, I think it's just called thoughtfulparent.com, but I'll put it in my notes. She is this introvert, very mellow, very calm woman who has raised two very active boys, so she can't relate to them at all. And I feel like that's really shocking and different and maybe even a little overwhelming for you if you're like that. They wonder, how can such a little person have so much energy? Parents will come to me, mothers will come to me and say, even in pregnancy, my child training to be an Olympic athlete. It's insane how active they were in there. They were boxing and wrestling and it's never stopping. And so these are moms who start out with exhaustion in pregnancy early on from all the movement, not even having trouble with sleep yourself or being uncomfortable or insomnia. So doctors and people in general act amazed when they meet active babies. They're surprised at how strong they are, how alert they are, how much they're observing, watching the world around, taking it all in. These are just some signs that you have a very active child if you're not convinced yet. And then I'm going to talk about things that I see a lot and some things aren't going to fit your child. So as I go through this list, I just want you to understand that I see everything. So I'm not trying to say that your child is going to be just like every other child. But one thing that I used to see a lot was that active babies wanted to grow up fast. They want to learn milestones sooner than usual. I think some of that comes from their strength. Some of that comes from just being so busy. And some kids will actually get frustrated that they can't sit up or they can't roll or that they can't stand yet. Impatient to walk. And some of the babies that I'm referencing, they'll do these things at really young ages, like walking at 8 months. That's so young. It looks so weird. I see this the most as a parallel with very active babies. They're very smart. And some people might wonder, how do you know if a baby is smart? Aren't we all just kind of biased thinking our babies are the smartest? Well, yeah, I do see that. And I've been there. But parents notice they're different. I'll ask them if they think their baby's really, really smart. And we just start discussing it. And before you know it, they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. This is unique for a baby. So maybe it's that your child is one step ahead of you all the time, or they're a half step behind you. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. But people who know what I'm talking about will already understand. Say you're trying to get your child to sleep a new way or to sleep better. You're trying to use all the advice that you're finding, and it might work for a couple days and then it stops working. And then you try another thing and it's so frustrating. Like during a regression, developmental period, this is when parents get really creative and they're trying to solve, what's going on. Why is my child so wired? Why are they fighting sleep now? Why is the wake window extending so much? Why is my child so hard to get to sleep now and skipping naps? So that's when parents are trying these things and they're finding something works. It's a lot of work. And then they're like, okay, well, at least it works. And then a few days later, that thing doesn't work anymore. And that can happen with schedules, even like trying to figure out wake windows or sleep cues. You just can't find a trick or anything that works. And sometimes it's about getting a baby to take a bottle or breastfeed. These kids they're so smart. And you try all these tricks and it doesn't work for long. They figure out what's going on and they just don't respond as well. These are babies that learn quickly and easily. Sometimes they have back-to-back leaps. So those mental leaps when their brains are developing, parents aren't really getting much of a break. And that's exhausting. When it comes to maybe copying you something that they want to figure out, maybe they learn that skill really quick, really easily. They seem to be taking in the world and learning constantly. They understand their parents and follow directions earlier than other babies. If you notice that your child just seems to understand you and they're still a baby, maybe an older baby, and you're really seeing this in a deep way. They may start talking early or speak well by 2 years old, like lots and lots of words and phrases, not just that I'm hitting the mark of where I should be. And at 2, we're starting to put a couple words together. These are kids that are speaking sentences at 2, So there's other baby traits that we can see in spirited kids. Sorry, active. I say spirited and active interchangeably because a lot of active babies have a whole set of attributes. You'll find information from Dr. Sears, from Mary Kursinka, that's Kurcink. They talk about this a lot. And I think, one says there's 10 traits, one says there's 12. If you just have a very active baby and they're very easygoing or predictable, you probably just have an active baby. Still, sleep can be challenging. But when you have a very active baby and there's a whole set of challenging or strong traits, it's different. It's different raising the child. It's different working on sleep. It's different at night. It's different when you're comparing your child to others or you're around other people. So I like to talk about these other attributes as well because, it just increases the challenges and the burden, the strain that we carry, or it makes us more creative, or, maybe it means that you're more exhausted. So let's talk about some more of those things. So now this one's not a challenge necessarily, but it can be. Most of them love to be around people and activity and go places. They almost crave it and they get bored easily. And some of them really need a lot of one-on-one attention from their parents. But others are just like, I want to be places. I want to see what's going on. I just feed off watching people, getting attention from people. It's so adorable when they're like that. They're not as shy, but some of them are shy. Some of them get overstimulated easily and their parents can't take them many places. They have to be careful about how long they're out and avoid going outside when it's time for a nap or bedtime, because the child will get overstimulated and then it's hard to get them to settle and sleep. One thing that I see in almost every very active baby is that they have fear of missing out. And in the US, I think Canada too, people get this term. They know what fear of missing out is, or FOMO. What it means is that a child just doesn't want to miss anything. They think it's always a party when there's someone to be with, when there's a visitor, when something changes in the house, when maybe there's a new toy, maybe, I don't know. It's funny how much the FOMO can be powerful. I mean, because I'll talk about some scenarios. Sometimes parents have to take their little ones in a dark room and feed them with nothing going on, nobody nearby, no noises. And, if you have more than one child, that's extremely hard. And if your child's in a daycare or you have to work, or you're just unable to establish that environment for them, then we can run into a baby who doesn't eat enough or often enough. And in most cases, they're making up for that at night. Sometimes this FOMO, or fear of missing out, means they resist going to sleep, even in the first week of their lives. And this also shows how smart they are, that they even know. One of my clients, she would walk her child to his room, and as a 1-week-old baby, he would cry on the way there. So, I mean, they can be so smart. That's another sign of picking up on that intelligence. Can you imagine if you don't have a baby like this, how difficult sleep could be, and you're out there navigating a world where people simplify sleep solutions. And someone will say, oh, I just got this sleep sack and it worked great. And they're telling everybody to get the sleep sack. And you're like, I've tried every sleep sack. I've tried everything that I can find online. And my child is still so difficult with sleep, fighting sleep. So much work to get them to sleep often enough. And then your nights are awful. And so we have a child like this. It can be really hard to be around people or get advice from people. It can be frustrating, upsetting, make you feel like a failure. And I see that a lot. Clients come to me and they blame themselves for their kids' sleep problems. They blame themselves for the sleep crutches. They say it's all their fault. And it's not true. And we're going to talk about that more. So hopefully as I talk, you're going to understand more and more of how unique your situation is and how you've been doing a great job and you're helping your child thrive. I know at the heart of everything is that problem of, but it's not sustainable. I need to sleep more, or my child needs to sleep more because you're worried about them. So I understand that it's not simple. It's really complex. I'm giving you reassurance. I'm helping you at least get rid of that feeling of being a failure or creating the problems. If you are thinking that way, stop. It's not true. It's not true. You are doing a terrific job with your very challenging child, and hardly anyone else relates. You're not finding the advice that you need in a quick way or things that work. It's not easy for you. So you don't have the energy to waste on those thoughts. Just recognize how awesome you are, how wonderful you are. Even if you have postpartum depression or anxiety or postpartum rage, or you're, not at all the person that you want to be or the mom that you want to be, I am telling you that you are doing amazing things for your child. I wish I could make all the challenges go away and give you hours of self-care to, spend on yourself every day. But I can't. Not on my podcast. I can help you as your coach. I just at least want to let you off the hook. If you're blaming yourself and calling yourself a failure, it's not true. Okay? So let's talk more about FOMO and active baby sleep. When it comes to these distractions, I just mentioned, people are going in a dark room just trying to get their babies to feed. These babies are so interested in what's going on that they will not let themselves fall asleep unless they're coaxed, isolated, in a dark room. Maybe for some people, we're using a swaddle or a weighted sleep sack, something that's very effective. My grandbaby needed one of those, and he would be freaking out until you put it on him. All these tools and all these ways to coax the child into going to sleep. On top of that, mom's feeding maybe even feeding and bouncing or rocking, swaying, or walking at the same time as feeding. One of my clients used to go into a dark bathroom, turn on the water, and sway her baby. And then when he was asleep, they would bring him into this totally dark bedroom and transfer him and, get a half hour sleep out of this guy. I thought of many examples as I was just thinking about that, about the having to bounce and feed at the same time. And anyone who goes to that type of work or effort to help their child sleep, whether it's for you to get a break or for your child to be well and whole, healthy, I'm sure it's both. You deserve so much credit and you're not getting it. People don't understand how hard this is, how exhausting, what your life is like every day. It makes me so emotional because I have talked to hundreds of you over the years, and you deserve so much more credit and attention and validation. These kids can be very difficult to get to sleep. They can resist sleep and just keep waking themselves up. Sensitive babies do the same thing. They pick up their heads and they look around when they're almost asleep. Maybe they get a little energy spurt right when they're almost asleep, and then we miss the whole chance of getting them to nap. I see that a lot when there's siblings or maybe dad comes home and they want to play with dad. They look for opportunities to play with anyone or anything. They act wired and tired at times. They fight sleep to the point of crying, wrestling to get out of your arms, and more. I'm actually thinking of a specific baby. There's this little guy at church that I've been helping his mom since he was born. I'm just giving her a little break because she has 5 kids. And I love him, and my grandbaby moved away. So I've always had the touch. I could get him to sleep during church, even as an older baby. That's pretty good. Because a lot of babies stop falling asleep easily when they're out and about once they're like 3 or 4 months old. Just a side note for you. But this little guy was just in the last month. So he just turned 1. I took him when he was super tired. I went to a mother's room. Nobody else there. I did have the sound on, which I regret now because he could hear all the people talking and he was trying to find them. But he was twisting in my arms. He was wrestling me. He would put his head down and be almost asleep. And then he'd start this all over again, twisting, trying to move, trying to get down, trying to play, and then crying and so upset. But he was so tired. And, I'm not his mom. And so I would just try to help him feel happy again and then try again. It's just so interesting to have that hands-on experience with someone else's kid and know what their struggle's like, because his mom told me that that's how it's been for her at home lately. Yeah, we've been talking about all the tools that you need to get your child to sleep. There are lots of people who will feed their child to sleep or rock or whatever because they love it and it works. And they're totally fine with that and it's working great and their kid's sleeping great, okay? I'm not at all saying that every kid in that boat is spirited or active or whatnot. It's more that if you have a very active child, a very sensitive child, you've got to use all the tools possible. And so these are not necessarily crutches in those cases. These are kids who won't sleep if you don't rock them or feed them or bed share or hold them and cuddle them, okay? They're the most challenging kiddos. Other things that are difficult. The slightest noise wakes them back up. Any noise or disruption wakes them early from naps or too often at night and early in the morning. They can't wait to play. They can't wait to wake up. So they seem to not have time for sleep. Another thing that nobody really addresses out there is that you can't just let these kids be. If they wake up at night, you have to rush to them if you have even the slightest hope that they will go back to sleep quickly or so that they don't wake themselves up too much and stay awake too long. And that's something that I work around with my clients. I know that this is the case. And so I'm not going to give you that advice. It's something that we work towards as the child develops sleep skills. To be able to wait and let themselves settle is important at some point. But often that's something to work towards. Okay. So I get it. Most active babies have a sensitive side, especially the ones that are spirited or have lots of these challenging traits or strong traits, I could say too. When sensitive babies are tired, they cry. And I mean like getting tired, time to go to sleep. We can see that. They can cry really intensely in the night. So this intensity is something that we see in spirited kids. Go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. So that's another reason parents can't let their kids cry and settle. They get so worked up. They get so upset so easily. They can cry for hours when parents try to use cry it out or time checks. These are the babies crying for over an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours straight. And this could go on for days and weeks. And parents will keep trying because people keep telling them it's going to work and you should just keep going and you need to be consistent in this and that. But the problem is their sensitive side makes them dependent on touch and closeness and being picked up and held to calm down. They don't have these natural self-soothing abilities that the easygoing and textbook kids have, where they will move rhythmically, they'll suck on something, they'll turn away and they'll just look around and they'll fall asleep. Well, these babies, they need to be held because we're coercing them, but we're also giving them that contact and that sense of peace, and contact and the bond is releasing feel-good hormones, and all of these things work together to help a child fall asleep. So it just doesn't work to let them cry, and babies can't work it out on their own anyway. They either have this ability to stay calm and not really get worked up, or they have like these minor abilities to self-soothe, like I mentioned, or they are a child who needs more from their parents and they need contact and they need more comfort. And, there's no such thing as one size fits all. That's a crazy thought. Okay, so here's another trait. Kind of goes with the intensity. They can be very strong-willed, which means that they know what they want and they'll fight for it and they are determined to get it. Sometimes parents will use cry it out or Ferber, and they'll do this for days or weeks, and finally the child will stop crying and they'll start sleeping better. And then, a month goes by, or maybe just a couple weeks, and teething kicks in, or a mental leap, or something that makes the child uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden, all the work goes out the window. They're waking often. Parents are recognizing the child has a need, so they're going to them. But after a week or 2 weeks, they start to freak out and think, oh my gosh, I'm creating a problem again. Oh no, sleep's going to be awful. What do I do? And they go into Facebook groups and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing all the progress. What do I do? Man, if we could just slow down and be in tune with the child and realize that, okay, I know sleep's important. I know that you need your sleep. I know that you go crazy without your sleep. I know your child needs sleep too, but if your child's sensitive, they feel everything and it's magnified 100 times. They're like super in tune with their bodies. So developmental periods, growth spurts, mental leaps, teething, all those periods when they're learning milestones and they're hyper and active and obsessed, those are real reasons kids are waking up. We are not creating a monster by going to them and responding and taking care of their needs. They actually need that. They crave it. And they're not little adults. They're little babies who have brains that are developing, no coping skills, no ability to comfort themselves yet. And they need to. And if you go through this again during one of these periods when the child isn't feeling well, you are going to see weeks of crying. You are going to see a child who maybe it doesn't work the second time, or maybe you just keep repeating the cry it out or the Ferber, and this goes on for 2 years. I'm here to say there's a better way. There is a better way, and that's what I'm passionate about sharing with parents, because all this stuff, the repeated cry it out and Ferber for a child who has needs and isn't able to calm or comfort themselves. I mean, can you imagine that there must be some harm there? It's not positive. It's not helping them. It's not teaching them security or being responsive and meeting their needs. Those are the things that really help kids thrive and even helps their brains and bodies develop well. So parents just need to know. There's just so much more to learn. Those periods that I was mentioning, all the growth and development, those can happen back to back for some spirited kiddos. Parents aren't really seeing a break. I'll ask them, well, have you noticed your child's learning lately? Are they picking up new skills? Are they understanding you better, making new sounds and words? And then they're like, yeah, but they always do. I really don't see a break from that. That's a real thing too. How frustrating and hard. It's not your fault. It's just the way they feel, it's the way they act, it's their temperament. It's nature. It's their sleep nature too. Kids with a non-self-soothing sleep nature, which is called signaler, they are the least independent child you will ever meet. As a baby, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm cool, I'm fine by myself. No, when they wake up at night, they want you. So you understand that that's part of who they are, their personality, the way they're made up. You can't change that, and you can't teach that out of them. But if you are responsive and you're doing many positive things to try and help them sleep well, and you're, a supportive, comforting parent, then eventually those abilities are going to form. They're going to be there. So it's not that we can force them, and it's not that we can change their personality. It's that we nurture them into the change and the progress. All right. These kiddos who have fear of missing out or FOMO also stay awake too long. So one of the ways that I identify a very active child in the beginning when they're very young is when I hear someone say, my baby has really long wake windows. They really don't want to sleep. Or I can't get my child to sleep. I'm trying like every couple of hours and I can't get them to take a nap. Those are some characteristics of a spirited baby. It's from the fear of missing out. They have short sleep windows, so they get tired and it's gone like that. This doesn't last long, maybe like 10 or 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden your child is awake again. They often have subtle sleep cues. Maybe they have subtle ones and then they have really strong ones. And when you see the strong ones, it's already almost too late to get them to sleep. And it causes so much work for you. Your child gets overtired. They get a second wind. So those are some really common things too. And, when I bring up all this stuff, guys, these challenges, there's solutions. My approach, my methods are geared towards these specific kids. So you don't have to feel hopeless and be like, oh my gosh, this sucks. You're just making me feel worse and more like my kid's just impossible. So these are also kids whose parents say they have low sleep needs. They have long wake windows, like I mentioned before, but maybe they're still happy. Maybe the parents think their kids have low sleep needs because they're just like these cute little happy kids during the day. And when they miss a nap, it's not that big of a deal. But I do see some things kind of, come to a head, I guess you could say. Even though a child might be happy, they could get extremely fussy at times, and then their sleep could be really, really awful at night. It could be just so hard to help them take a nap. You're working super hard to get that nap out of your child. That's a sign that they're awake too long. It might mean spending an entire day in the nursery, and you can end up feeling completely burnt out, miserable, frustrated, and desperate for a break, desperate to leave your house, desperate to end this cycle. I've really, really seen this problem a lot. So does any of this sound familiar to you guys? I'm super curious. If you can relate, I want to know. Leave a comment in the show notes, below the show notes. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Apple, wherever you are, hopefully there's a place for you to leave a comment. Tell me about the struggles that sound familiar to you. Tell me what sleep looks like at your house. While you're leaving a comment, there's more you can do to help me reach more moms and make the show even better. Right now, I'm looking for mothers with spirited children to be on my show. I actually want to talk to you. I want to hear about your situation directly. Take the sleep temperament quiz on my website. Get in there, get more information. There's a video that you'll find. They'll start giving you tips and insight that you need. Leave a review. And these are different ways that I'm going to enter you. If you comment, you tell me about your child, you take the sleep temperament quiz, you leave a review for me. These are ways that you'll be in that drawing. Make sure you talk about your spirited child and their qualities. Let me know that this is something you can relate to. Usually when you take my sleep temperament quiz, you find that your child is a signaler, either a very attached baby or a very secure baby. And both of those have a lot to do with the support you're giving. So those are the two results that you would get if you have a very spirited child. There'll be emails that go out after you take the sleep temperament quiz. Make sure you respond. Say, hey, I have a spirited child. I heard your podcast episode. I want to be interviewed on your show. So these are just different ways that you can have an opportunity to be on my show. I want to start interviewing at least one mom a month. Okay. So this could be really, really cool. For those of you listening, a great way for you to share your story, to talk to me about your child and their sleep, and share with the world what you're learning and what is working well for you, what's a struggle, so that you can talk to other moms and help them understand that they're not alone, that there's hope, and Maybe you'll even make some connections. People reach out to you. If your name is chosen, I'll get in touch with you in a couple weeks because I want to do this by January. Before January 1st, 2024, I'll get in touch with you and we'll set up an appointment so that we can have a conversation and you can be on my podcast. So at this point right now, I really want to share with you a story or two about my clients' kiddos so you can see how challenging it can be to raise a child that's very active or work with them with sleep. Or if you can relate to these stories, I want you to hear them so that you, again, feel validated and you don't feel alone. And that's a pretty cool feeling when you know that other people can relate to what you're going through and you have been feeling very isolated. So one of my clients, she was on episode 27. I interviewed her. She has the most active daughter with the most sleep challenges I've seen in my 6 years of full-time sleep coaching, specializing in spirited and sensitive kids. She's now 3 years old. I learned so much from her mom and Mackenzie herself, the little girl. She's one of the first children I worked with who didn't magically sleep well when her mother did all the right things with her at a young age. Usually, when you start really young, like 2, 3, 4 months old, even out in the nanny or newborn care specialist world, we believe that if you do things early and right, that your child's going to sleep well and it's going to be easier. And I saw that and I believe that. But I did have some cases like this where we did all the right things and nope, the child's sleep didn't change. It took a long time for her mom, Jennifer, to go through the steps she needed to. And honestly, she didn't necessarily follow my program long term, but we did stay connected. And I did a lot of observing and we did a lot of, just problem solving together. So she didn't use a sleep method. She felt more like, number one, you'll hear in a minute how challenging things were for her. And that's one of the reasons. But also she just felt like being more intuitive and patient. And there was some bed sharing and just lots and lots of caregiving going on there. So I'm not faulting her for that. I don't know if I even had my spirited method at the time. She did all the holistic things that you can do. She did all the right things. But Mackenzie was so challenging that her mom had to work really hard to figure out what to do and how to take care of her every step of the way. And it's not like we knew at 2 or 3 months that she was the most spirited little girl I'd encountered. She was a baby who struggled to be laid down when she was sleeping. A lot of people can relate to that. She was a baby who struggled to fall asleep. She was a young baby with FOMO and loss of energy. She had colic. Her mom had to work through that. There were many struggles in the beginning. Her mom was sleep deprived and a bit lost. No one can really support you adequately when you have a very challenging, unique baby. She felt alone and she just had to feel her way through trial and error like other people. And you don't usually know people with babies like yours in this case. The doctor didn't know what to tell her or how to help her. And sometimes her advice made things worse and they didn't fit her heart. So she didn't tell the doctor. Well, I'm grateful that she found me early on because we were a team. And I think that I gave her some insight and some permission to parent her way and support and, being a very supportive mom. She would have done that on her own, but, having someone tell you that this is right is really helpful and it helps you figure it out sooner. But I knew about active and sensitive babies, so I did help her put the puzzle together at times. And I learned a lot about sleep nature, as I said. That was really, really good for me to see that no matter what you do right, there are babies out there who are not interested in independence and that aren't ready for it, and we don't want to force it on them. It's not simple to teach spirited or very active babies to fall asleep on their own at times. And this is something that I needed to see. One thing I really learned, though, and feel very strongly about is that mothers of more challenging babies seem to have a stronger sense of intuition and instincts. I think that they have to work harder and listen closer and rely on it more. And this is what helps them meet the baby's needs and do things differently than most of their peers, which is necessary. Jennifer always gave her daughter what she needed, no matter what it took out of her. She did the dance every day, every night. She bent her will. She was flexible. She tried new things. She learned to trust her gut and her heart and follow it. She found her own way of helping Mackenzie sleep better, sleep more, and she accepted that sleep wasn't going to be perfect for a while, maybe never. Eventually, Mackenzie had stretches of all-night sleep off and on around 1, then more and more often until she was 2. but she was constantly in leaps and growing and developing and teething. There were lots of rough times in between. For a couple of weeks, Mackenzie would sleep awesome, and her mom always shared with me, so I knew that she would start waking up a few nights a week for weeks straight for an hour or two or 3 or 4 hours at night. One of the things I love about Jennifer is that she found a way to relieve the stress that she felt, and she didn't let the stress get in the way of her relationship with her daughter. She broke the rules. She went to the kitchen and got snacks with Mackenzie and let her sit on the counter and let her play with her food and let her do the silly little games that she liked to do. She let her roll around, play. She let her climb all over her while she was trying to rest. Whatever it was, Jennifer smiled and loved and patiently gave her daughter what she needed. And when Jennifer was too exhausted to go on, she asked her husband for help, and they would pile into the car and go driving for an hour to get Mackenzie back to sleep. Now, I imagine this sounds miserable and terrible to many of you. I know it's not ideal. There were breaks with good sleep in between, and this helped Jennifer get through. But what matters is that Jennifer recognized that her little girl is her own person. Mackenzie is a little girl, not a problem to be solved. Her mom knew that from the beginning. She learned that following conventional rules and ideas would not work for her or Mackenzie, so she let go of them. Her intuition and instincts are the best tools she has, even with me in her back pocket. At 3 years old, Mackenzie still struggles during developmental periods, but her sleep is better than ever, and her mom hardly ever texts me about those long nights anymore. I'm super happy for her. I love that Jennifer sends me videos. Her daughter is so healthy. She's thriving. There's so much love and goodness inside her. We see it in the way that she interacts with other kids, the way she interacts with her parents. She's independent and brave. She's secure in her own little world because her parents made it safe, dependable, consistent, and loving for her. None of her sleep problems are Mackenzie's fault. She is who she is, and the sleep problems came along with the package like a non-bonus. And her parents have grown and learned so much, which is perfect because they're preparing for baby number 2 to come into their lives very soon. Another story I was thinking about when I prepared this was my client friend Amanda, who is interviewed in episode 21. I don't want to go into as much detail or talk about this one as long, but I want to point out that Amanda came to me just a little later than Jennifer when her daughter was 5 months old, which is a tough age, 4, 5, 6 months. There's so much going on, and kids can really, really struggle because of the development, the teething, and all the things, the learning. Her dad wanted to do sleep training, and I don't remember if they tried it or not. I think Amanda probably talked about that in the interview, but it didn't feel right to her, and nothing was working, honestly. Things were so hard for both of them because they were on different pages. And something that I'm proud of is that after a few months, when they had questions about parenting, her husband would say, "Ask Meredith." I love that. Amanda learned to use affirmations that filled her heart with patience, love, and gave her the strength she needed to get through the tough nights, through the exhaustion, the constant demands. And to this day, as she cares for her 2 children, she tells me that she hears my voice in her mind during those hard times saying, "They need you right now. This will pass. It's so worth it." And you know what? I've seen the same beautiful changes and progress happen with her daughter. She is just thriving, and I'll go into more detail with that in just a second. I know we had some lovely heart-to-heart conversations when I worked with her and then continued on with our friendship. I know there were times that were hard and when she needed encouragement, but I don't remember saying those things to her. But I love that she remembers and that I was able to be that support system she needed to help her get through so many tough nights. It's one of the things I love about my job. I really, really have opportunities to change lives with my sleep work, with mentoring, with the friendships that I create with these people. And I can't imagine more rewarding work. I love seeing the way little Hannah, Amanda's daughter, has thrived. She's blossomed into an independent little girl who's brave and happy. She's secure in her parents' love, learning to talk and express herself, super smart. She's the most loving sister and a very loving daughter as well. She wasn't always this way, this whole package. She used to be really, really challenging and hard for her parents, but they created this beautiful child through their love and support. They helped mold her into the little girl she is now through the patience, the time, the night support. She has so much promise. She's developing the power to move through the challenges of life with ease. Now that I've filled you with information, insight, some beautiful happy endings, I want to help you. Whether you're a parent who's very close to the subject and in the middle of sleep deprivation, or if you aren't sure how active or sensitive your baby's going to turn out, I want to help you. If you fall into the first category, I want to tell you that I understand what it's like. I can see how hard you're working at raising your child. Very few people can relate to your difficulties and challenges. And unfortunately, people assume that babies are all alike, so they think everyone's babies are easy when it comes to sleep. They often believe that other moms are making mistakes, causing their own problems, or creating bad habits. They may blame you, or maybe you blame yourself for your child's sleep struggles. None of this is correct or accurate. You've got a hard job, and you're doing your best. You're giving it your all, even if it's not a lot. It matters, and you're tired for a reason. You are my favorite people to serve. It must be exhausting to feel like you're on the outside looking in, maybe even feeling excluded or disregarded. It must be difficult to feel alone and that no one gets it. I've spoken and cried with hundreds of moms like you. It's exhausting to get your child to sleep. You may wonder, how can you find time, energy, or motivation to change the sleep habits? I'll tell you, when you're so worn down that you don't know if you can live this way anymore, somewhere deep inside, you'll find the strength to ask for help, to follow the simple steps, to take it 1 hour at a time. And I'll be so careful with you, find out what you can handle, not put pressure on you, hold your hand and make it possible. If you're in the second category, meaning your baby's young and you're not sure how spirited your child is, or, really seeing what's to come yet, maybe you're not struggling with sleep very much and you're comparing your child and saying, well, this is probably pretty normal. It's okay. I can still help you. Let's see what we can do now to improve sleep while your child is young. Like I said, in most cases, when you start young, you can really shape strong sleep habits for life. And if not, if you don't have the strongest sleep habits for life, you'll appreciate my support and friendship, the insight I teach you, the permission I give you to be yourself, the way I help you grow in confidence, the questions that I can answer for you so that you don't struggle with confusion and doubt and get lost along the way. You don't have to wait until sleep is at its worst. You can come to me and get started on sleep for any reason at any time. Sometimes people come to me because they're very concerned about their children's health and well-being. They can be concerned about their own health and well-being too, or want to figure out how to establish a better balance, find more time in the evening, a way to get up early and exercise, improve their relationship with their spouse, or get their partner caring for the baby at night. People see their babies and young children acting like they're happier when they sleep better. They notice their children are easier to take care of when they're more rested. They notice the difference in the way they look and act. They can tell how exhausted they are through their behaviors. And, this is real. The changes you can make to make your life easier are real. There are a host of reasons to move forward. We'll find your motivation. No matter what your story is, I can help you move forward because I believe in one important key. Make baby step changes, at least in the beginning while you get started. While we figure out where to start, we should break things down into bite-sized pieces. And on top of that, there's one more thing that's just amazing and powerful to help you. I developed the baby-centered sleep system that helps all babies learn to sleep as well as they are capable of. There are some cases where I have to get very creative, but this foundation that we lay through this system is really what helps children sleep well, all children I work with. I found that following a certain order of steps will get all parents to their sleep goals. I customize the methods, the solutions, and give parents the best one-on-one attention money can buy. What can you work on now so that you can feel convinced that my system might actually work for you? I want to give you a couple of things to do today and tomorrow and the next day. Some ideas. I want you to choose one, honestly. So one thing that you could do that, it's a really, really powerful and also beautiful thing. Get your partner, your spouse, or a family member involved in responding to your child at night or in naps or doing the bedtime or the nap routine. Just give that away. See if even at nighttime, it's bringing the baby to you. If you're already bed sharing, that's challenging. So maybe we talk about it in a different way, but get them involved in the routines. And set yourself up so that you're not doing all of this alone and you have support. It can make a big difference with sleep to get that other person involved. It really can. It's one of the tools that I use. Or another choice, transfer your baby to the crib at least once a day. Pick the shortest nap and you'll feel less stressed about it. If you can hold your baby or feed them back to sleep when they wake up after a short nap, go ahead and do that if it makes you feel better. But a lot of spirited babies I know won't go back to sleep. So choose a short nap to work on. One more choice. Put your baby in the crib for the first 1 or 2 hours in the beginning of the night. This can really make a difference. The child will be starting the process, moving towards better sleep. And it's worth a try. But don't forget to be consistent. It's important to not start and stop or skip days or question whether or not it's going to make a difference. As long as it feels good, keep going. Stick with it. You'll see some differences and it will motivate you to keep going. A baby step approach is a very smart way to work on your active child's sleep. You'll be exhausted, so it's really hard to do a lot. But also because this is just what works for these kids to move forward. You've got the smart feature there where they're figuring out what you're doing. So baby steps are easier. It helps them not get stressed out and feel calmer. It helps you feel calmer. It feels more doable. And we're the same way. I won't go on and on about this, but we change in baby steps effectively. So it makes perfect sense that we would take this approach with sleep too. If you really want to make long-term changes, do it this way. So there's 2 important steps that I take in my baby-centered sleep system that you won't find anywhere else that are geared towards spirited and sensitive kids, active and sensitive kids. They're 2 tools that make all the difference for them. They're ways to help them sleep well sooner and much better than if you wait for progress to come naturally. The first one, I have a whole process that my clients follow for teaching their little ones security and comfort in their beds. It has a lot to do with responsiveness, building trust, helps them sleep deeply because they feel so at ease and comfortable, and they aren't constantly looking for reassurance unless they're not feeling well. And when they're not feeling well and they need you, there's no reason not to provide that help. They need it. And the second tool is, I can tell you this from experience, from working with more than 1,000 little babies and children now, that when we can help little ones learn to fall asleep in their beds without help eventually, and most of the time we get to that point of getting them to fall asleep in the bed without help and no one in the room, that's even more empowering. It's not a must for all kids, but it can really empower them to sleep better during the day and night. And I only work on this for naps and bedtime. I don't do it through the night. You don't have to stop holding or feeding your child or ignore them at night. When they have the skill to fall asleep in their bed, they typically sleep for longer periods because they're connecting sleep cycles on their own. You've empowered them, you've given them skills, but there's still times when you'll need to be there for them at night. So here's one more bonus insight before we go. I teach my clients to always follow their heart and instincts at night as they respond to their children. And I want to point that out because people often come to me expecting a big change in what they're doing at night. And I think that that's normal in the sleep training world. So hopefully people aren't disappointed. But in the sleep training world, you're given rules to follow. It can help you feel safe. It can give you structure and clarity. But that's not really our goal here. Our goal is to help you grow in confidence, help you know how to meet your child's needs, and help you learn to listen to your intuition and instincts to help your child thrive. Okay? Everything that comes to you naturally, instinctively, intuitively, that's good and positive is going to help support your child's long-term well-being. You need to listen to yourself and be in tune with your child. You can help them thrive and develop properly and grow healthy in every way. I give my clients a night response plan to follow. I share insight on what encourages them to connect sleep cycles, but often my clients are already doing the right things. So remember to trust yourself, be in tune, follow what feels right in your heart and your gut. Educate yourself. I've got so much information about spirited, sensitive kids in all my episodes, but specifically something that can really empower you is my What's Wrong with Old-Fashioned Sleep Training series in the podcast. It's like number 18 through 23 or something like that. And it will help you understand your child better, feel strong and reassured and at peace. It will help you know how to support them. It will give you the ammo, the motivation, the excitement and enthusiasm to do what's tough to help them thrive. These are experts that I interviewed that can help you understand what they need to thrive and help you understand what's not positive and helpful with old-fashioned sleep training. So one more thing I forgot to advise is ask for help. Don't try to do all of this on your own. I'm here. I'm ready to help you and your family feel rested again. I'll help you find peace of mind, reassurance, grow in confidence, and move forward finally so you can feel fabulous and be more like your old self again. If you'd like to learn more about working with me, please visit my website at sweetslumbertime.com. Click on the sleep temperament quiz, which will give you access to a free video with more insight and details about my baby-centered sleep system. Or just go ahead and set up a sleep intervention call with me to talk to me as soon as possible and get started. You'll find what you need on the home and contact tabs on my website. Stay tuned for lots of new episodes coming up. I'll be talking to you, the mamas, every Friday with solo episodes or interviews to help you with sleep, caring for your child, parenting, and supporting you on your motherhood journey. But watch for a separate series of podcast episodes every Tuesday if you're thinking of becoming a sleep coach or another type of coach or birth world worker. If you're already training or working in this industry, these episodes are for you. It's going to be exciting. Thanks for being with me today. Until next time, I'll see you soon.